Arguably the most famous shipwreck in history, the Titanic continues to fascinate those of all ages 111 years later. The tragedy of the Titanic has proven to be just as horrific, as shocking, and as mysterious today as it was the night it sank. Even though it seems like we've learned everything there is to know about that terrible night, we still make discoveries about it that keep this horrific event in history very relevant. In 1898, author Morgan Robertson wrote The Wreck of the Titan, or Futility. The plot was eerily familiar. Robertson had written about a ship, the Titan, going on its maiden voyage across the Atlantic that struck an iceberg and sank. The liner did not have enough lifeboats, and it was described as being unsinkable, seeing as it was the biggest ship of its day. The story was written 14 years before the sinking of the Titanic. Many named Morgan a prophetic writer, while others said he just knew what he was talking about as he spent most of his earlier years at sea. Logically speaking, he probably just saw ocean liners becoming bigger and bigger, and wondered about the dangers of this, including icebergs. However, it's hard not wonder if this was in fact some sort of premonition. The famous story of the musicians playing as the ship went down is one that is unquestionably heartbreaking. The leader of the 8 musicians, Wallace Hartley, played a violin, trying to help the passengers stay calm as the ship sank. In the ship's final moments, he led the band in playing the hymn, "Nearer, My God, to Thee." Hartley went down with the ship that night. His body was recovered 2 weeks later, with his violin strapped to him. The violin was an engagement gift for Hartley from his fiancée. Engraved on the violin are the words, "For Wallace on the occasion of our engagement, from Maria." The violin was found in an attic by a woman's son in 2006. It was in a case marked WHH. The violin had been passed from house to house during the years. In March 2013, it was announced that it was Wallace Hartley's violin that he played when the Titanic went down. The violin's journey began when Hartley's body was recovered with his violin all those years ago. The violin was then returned to his grieving fiancée, who never married. According to those who explored the wreckage, one of the eeriest aspects is seeing objects that would have definitely been touched by human hands and have stayed in the same place their owner left them. First-class passenger Henry Harper left his bowler hat in his closet next to his coats the night the Titanic sank. What is slightly unsettling, however, is that the bowler hat never left the closet in the sinking and sits surrounded by the ruins of Harper's cabin, exactly where he left it. Another stateroom holds a water glass and a glass decanter sitting on a washstand. The water glass still sits in its place in its holder, meaning that the patron in that stateroom had taken a drink and left it half full, and it is still there today. Dorothy Gibson, a popular actress at the time, acted in a movie about the sinking of the Titanic less than a month after the ocean liner sank. As if that wasn't crazy enough, Dorothy Gibson was actually a passenger on the Titanic and experienced the terrible night. Gibson did not want to appear in Saved from the Titanic at first, due to the horrible experience being ridiculously recent. However, her producers hounded her to do the movie, convinced that it would do really well due to its captivating story. It was completed in a week, despite Dorothy having multiple breakdowns during filming, bursting into tears during shooting. Once the film was released, it was not received well. Many critics were appalled that a studio would make a movie about one of the worst maritime tragedies in history just 1 month after it happened. On top of that, everyone found the fact that Dorothy had actually been on the Titanic and went through with filming unbelievable. One of the 13 couples that were on their honeymoon on the Titanic consisted of 37-year-old Mr. John Chapman and his new bride, Lizzie, 29, who were on their way to a new life in the United States just after getting married. When the lifeboats were being loaded, Lizzie was placed in Lifeboat 4, but then heard that her husband was not allowed in the boat with her. She stated, "I won't go either," and exited the lifeboat to stand next to her husband. The couple both drowned a short time later after they and others got plunged into the sea. Mr. Chapman's pocket watch stopped right at the moment they fell into the cold Atlantic, 1:45 a.m. on April 15, 1912. The watch was recovered along with John's body, but unfortunately, Lizzie's body was never found. In 2007, 95 years after the sinking of the Titanic, an ordinary key was put up for auction. Interestingly enough, this key was thought to open the crow's nest locker, which contained the binoculars that could have potentially saved the ship from disaster. A crow's nest is a platform that is high on a ship's mast, from which you can better see objects, such as land and other ships that are far away. Binoculars were vital in detecting threats while in the nest. The owner of the key, Second Officer David Blair, was removed from the crew right before the Titanic set sail, and due to his hasty departure, he forgot to hand the key to his replacement, Charles Lightoller. Since the crow's nest lookouts did not have binoculars, they had to use only their eyes to watch for any threats. It has been argued that if they'd had binoculars, they could have seen the iceberg sooner. Unfortunately, the key may never be able to unlock the full mystery of the binoculars and the Titanic. On April 14th, the day the Titanic struck the iceberg, an emergency lifeboat drill had, ironically, been scheduled. Due to reasons unknown, the drill was canceled by Captain Smith. If the drill had gone through, many more lives could have been saved. The passengers would have been more likely to have followed proper protocol and procedure in loading the lifeboats. In 2004, a photograph was taken of a pair of shoes lying on the ocean floor at the wreckage site of the Titanic. In 2012, on the 100th anniversary of the sinking, the photo was released to the public. The shoes were so close together that they probably were once on a victim, and the body has since disintegrated. Filmmaker James Cameron has visited the wreckage site various times and says that no human remains have ever been found, and never will be because bones dissolve relatively quickly at this depth. The only things left of the passengers who did not survive are the clothes they were wearing and their belongings. Shoes found closely together more than likely are where a victim's body came to rest.